Turtles all the way down. I'm Jake, sometimes Jenk. Welcome to 2017, and this is the first episode of the year. A year that I hope and I think will be a better year. I guess what I'm saying is that I'm optimistic. And I think, there's a lot of swirling insanity around us. But despite all of this, I seem to keep company with a lot of friends that, despite all of this, are optimistic. And I am also. There is some truth to the fact that, attitude goes a long way towards making reality in the way that that might benefit you. And there's some truth to that. If you're constantly pessimistic, you're probably going to run into more difficulty, more or less. I mean, that seems to be the case. I mean, that's not to say that you should never be pessimistic. It's also equally dangerous to be constantly, in the clouds. You got to have, some sense of what's going on, of course. And as we talk about in a lot of these discussions about health, it's about balance. And I'm trying to find this balance. And I don't know how you're like, but I'm one of these people that tends to fluctuate or oscillate wildly between, states and moods, I guess. Not that I necessarily project that to the world or make a big fuss about it. But this tends to play itself out mainly when I'm alone. And I tend to be alone quite a bit and work through these things. Now, by the way, speaking of, I don't know if you've seen this TV show, Black Mirror. I've been watching a few episodes of it lately. And I got to say, this guy seems to have hacked into some of my nightmares. And a lot of these episodes are investigating some of the ideas and extrapolations from our current technology and culture and, what could go wrong in some cases for our entertainment. I've been enjoying it. If you haven't seen that, look it up. It's on Netflix and probably other places as well. Now, there's been a few of these episodes deal with subject matter that seems to be coming up quite a bit in popular culture, and that is this notion of the simulation or living in a simulation, whether it's coming from, tech billionaires, movie stars, or philosophers. There's more talk of it lately, and I got to admit, there's some talk of it on the episodes that you've already heard, and some to come ahead. I think I talked a little bit about this in one of the episodes, is that I kind of have this notion of the future as being somewhat confusing in a very, very fundamental way. Confusion with regards to, time and being and self and being in or this notion that you might be in a simulation is kind of a perfect example of this thing that's taking hold in popular culture. And it's nothing new. I mean, you've got what I would say a lot of the religions have this component or this way of seeing the universe built into it. That is this notion that there is a reality in which you're living, and this notion that there is another reality that is often described as being a higher reality or a realer reality. Whether it's Christian heaven or you've got Platonic ideals, or you happen to think that you're living in a simulation and that there's another reality, another tier up, another level of turtles, if you will, moving up or down. Now, these sorts of the sort of understanding of the universe to me doesn't really add anything other than, it's fun to speculate, and it is, I do enjoy talking about it a lot. But if that happens to be true, it really changes nothing, right? I mean, you're living in this world. You have your reality. You have access to all the facets of this, call it a game, if you will. And that's all you have. You can't step outside of the simulation or play outside of the simulation, so all you have is this. And talking about something that's outside of this, whatever this reality is, a lot of philosophers will tell you that it's nonsense in the sense that there's, you're not sensing it. There's no evidence of it. There's no way to connect to it or to have access to it or to be within it. In which case, a lot of them will tell you that there's really no point in talking about something that you can't see, touch, taste, or feel. So, that's discounted in some cases as not worth investigating. But I mean, that doesn't stop a lot of us from doing that, from venturing into these realms, whether it's through, philosophical speculation, through artistic works and creativity, through religious means, or through psychedelics, which is an avenue, is a way that into it that I've chosen a few times as well. This is discussed in our upcoming conversation here with artist Jo Blakley. She's an artist that ventures into these realms, these topics, subject matters for her art. And kind of an interesting personal story as well. It seems that despite her, religious upbringing or lack thereof, she ends up incorporating a lot of, the message of the Christ and some of these Christian frameworks of the world. I've described in the past this place that I get to when I'm often tripping on a psychedelic of a significant dosage. I often come to this place where I feel like it's kind of a door into, I'm not sure, but it seems like it's either a door into pure ecstasy and joy, or it's either that, or what the fear kicks in and stops me from going in there is that it might actually be a move into non-being, or death, as you might call it. But Jo talks about going there and coming back, and what that is, and what it does to us. Fun conversation. I hope you enjoy it. Talk soon.
I love the smell. I love the smell of incense, and very good. Very good. So I don't know where you want to start.
Well, I mean, I'm just happy to have an artist in my space to talk with me. I think it's amazing. It's actually one of these words that I think that I've only recently been able to apply to myself. There was always this sense of that you somehow needed to reach a state where you felt qualified, or,
right?
or
and
that
what
you
is
deserved
that?
it. And
I think
what is
every
it?
artist feels that way. Like, and what is that point? Like, is it your first sale? Is it your first show? Is it, what is it?
What do you think?
I think we are born artists. I think that creative genius doesn't belong to us in a way. We are vessels for that genius. But it is us too, right? Like, so it's us and it's our experience and it's this collective consciousness. I think that's the artist. And I think we capture those moments.
So it sounds like there's this notion of genius that we hear about in art in particular, but also in the sciences. But in art, it comes up throughout our history, and everyone pays a lot of attention to it. But the notion of genius is meant not so much to give agency to that person, but to take some away, in the sense that they're actually less responsible for that art by being a genius, in the sense that it's an energy that's flowing through them.
Yes.
It's not so much that they're doing it all themselves. So in a
Yes.
way, when we call them a genius,
we participate. Like, I think it's a like, you have to do part of the work, right? Like, so you have to do your own work, your own experiencing, your own life, your own gathering of information, and then the universe can piece it all together and make sense of it for you and give you inspiration to then maximize it.
So is that kind of a collaboration between you, an entity, and another entity, the universe?
No, I think it's you and you, like I and I, It's you and the universe. And when you're connected with that force, I mean, that's when you're going to get that inspiration. And I think everybody has those moments. I think artists are much more attuned to it, to see it and grab that thread and then pull on the thread, so that they can get more and more of it. We have more confidence in it because we've done that pulling of the thread, and we've seen the results. Whereas some people don't quite have the confidence, the courage to do that. But they have those moments.
How do we even see that the thread's there to be pulled? When
it comes into our mind. It's magic, right?
Yeah.
It's magic. But it happens.
It's kind of a seeing.
You perceive it. You perceive it. It's sometimes people get it in all different kinds of ways. Sometimes it's a sound. Sometimes it's finding the right book at the right moment. Meeting the right people. It's connecting. It's all about connecting with someone present, someone from the past, someone through time. Like it's like time flattens in a way. Like there's no separation because you can be spoken to by the ancients.
And the future?
I believe so. I believe so. I think I think that there is like a shape of things to come. Like there's a shape that we are, and it's a shape that's defined by love. Like that would be the framework of it. But what it manifests like and looks like, that's up to us.
So it's almost like we see this ripple going forward, and we can extrapolate what that future ripple is going to look like.
Yes.
Without actually having foresight of it in any kind of a magical way. But
I mean, I think. Yeah, I think it's a collaborative thing, and I think that because it evolves, it's an evolving thing, and it's constant. Like so, as we, excuse me, as we get past each new step, we have a new framework to work from, right? So it's a constant like rebirthing.
It sounds like a layer of a turtle.
It is. It's like very much like that. It's very much
bracket
like that.
It into another, a perspective.
Yes, like the multiverse, like whatever it is. Like there's moments that that make major, dramatic, universal changes. But I still think like that initial force, that framework is and always will be love. Like I think that's the creative force of the universe. I think that's what gravity is.
Oh, tell me more about gravity. Yeah.
So I think, when you think of our own lives, just in a organic, small way, what draws us together, what holds us together is love. So just from a consciousness point of view. And I think consciousness at its core is love. And I think the universe has a consciousness, and this consciousness is love. And it's what holds everything together. It's what draws things together, even at a like in everything. It's an energy force that.
So what's driving this force? What is the core of it? I mean, it's itself.
It is itself.
That sounds like also like a definition or self-definition of a God as well.
Yes.
Right.
Yes. Exactly it. There only is being. There is only like being is all that there is. And. I was listening to your previous podcast, and so maybe we can go there.
Sure, of course. Yeah. Callback.
Yeah. But you had mentioned this doorway that you feel that you come upon. And that doorway is the doorway into non-being. It is the doorway of death, of the only death that exists. Everything else is a continuation of the ego and the self, in whatever form that takes.
So you think this door, this is a great therapy session for me, by the way. So you think this door kind of represents, does it represent me keeping something away from myself? Does it represent me being afraid to go somewhere?
Well, you are afraid to go there. You are afraid to go there. And I understand why. It's not something that is, first of all, from what I understand, when that's happened to you, it's been on ayahuasca or mushrooms?
Typically on ayahuasca and mushrooms, it's a very typical experience for me. Yeah.
So
more the plant-based psychedelics. Yeah.
And I think that that's also maybe one of the reasons why you hold back, because there's a sense of certainty that is not going to be with you in that moment because of the drugs, right?
Yeah.
So I think finding it without that is the goal. Now, having gone through it with probably pot, but probably not anything stronger. Like, I mean, definitely not anything stronger than pot.
Right.
I have gone through that that door. And it's a doorway that's spoken about in like every religion. Like it's there in the mystical aspects of the religion. Right. And it is the death and rebirth. So, but it's like I said, it's the only death that there is.
What do you mean by the only death? Is that like ego death? Is that what you mean?
It's not just the ego. So it's the ego and everything. Like it's becoming non-being, right? So it's the annihilation of the body and the self. Like you vanish. Like basically it's like a fission bomb. You become a black hole. You spoke of the singularity. You are that singularity. You are that.
But, okay, yeah.
Like basically imagine,
yes.
So for example, we think of ourselves as organic beings, all right? We think of ourselves as corpuscles and blood and that's how we imagine ourselves. And that there's a truth to that because we have to react to the physical manifestations of ourselves, right? But it's not the only truth that there is. And an equal truth is that we are quantum interactions in fields of, people say probability, I say possibility, and that's the name of a podcast that I want to do. Wow. But we're mostly space. And if you took all the space that's between us and collapsed it, between the whole planet and everybody on it and all the earth, it would be about the size of a baseball.
Well, I mean,
we're not solid.
And in theory, it should all go reduce back down to a singularity point again, because the Big Bang theory essentially is that everything was at one point that singularity moment, and
that's where it all comes
was all
from
touching
in a sense.
yeah. And then
and time
splayed out.
vanishes too, and people like it's hard to imagine something as vast as rolling it all back to the beginning, and because we think of the universe as vast, but it wasn't. It was extremely concentrated, including time. So, and then there's the a priori existence. And the death that I'm talking about is that a priori existence, is going back to before time, So in that space, there's eternity, but there's also the absence of even eternity.
But can I ask you a question about that?
It's the absence of everything.
I'm always trying to learn, if I could, that part or that place before time.
Yeah.
Does experience happen there?
No.
Okay. So if
there's no you to experience.
Right. So if nothing happens there and there's no experience.
All there is being. That's the discovery.
Right.
Right? All there is being. All there is that is.
And it's all together in
one.
Non-being, which is being, but
But
what can we say about a place where we can say nothing about?
You understand it by its contrary, right? You understand it by its contrary.
So can you go into there and back?
Well, I did.
Okay, tell me about that.
Well, I basically did, right? Because you don't experience it. Like, so, there's a sense of, so I guess I could, for me, it was a progression of a number of experiences over a number of years that kind of coalesced at one moment. And I would say there's like 3 or 4 books at the time that were major influences, and a television program. And so one was the Tibetan Book of the Dead. The other one is William Blake's Milton, which is where I took my last name Blakley, actually, from William Blake. He's like my spiritual father, I think, is kind of how I think about him. And what happened with me with his book is with reading Milton was exactly what he wrote about his experience of Milton going through doing this. So I paralleled that experience in reading the book.
Wow. While you were reading it?
While I was reading
Amazing.
it. And so there was that. And then there was that book is a funny book because I had that book when I was like 10 years old, 12 years old, because I liked the pictures. And I would open it up, and like look at William Blake, it's like reading gibberish. Like if you have not, like it's like gibberish. You open it up, and I'd read it, and I'd keep it up, and it was gibberish, and I'd put it back on my shelf, and I'd look at the pictures, and like, and 5 years later, I'd open it up. Do I need to throw it away? I'd open it, look gibberish again, but I still like the pictures.
Wow.
Put it away. And then one day I opened it up, and it wasn't gibberish anymore, and it was speaking to me. Mm-hmm. And it was guiding me just the same way that Milton was guided in his book, and he was guided in that sense, like
what a
with
great
his brother.
meta work of art.
Unbelievable. And he calls it a
time.
prophecy. And it's I think it's a magic book. Like there's 2 books that I think are magic that I've really experienced magic in, and that's one of them, and the Bible is another.
Wow.
So like it's powerful stuff.
Tell me more about if you
and
like
he spoke
Milton,
of poetic
then,
genius. His thing was about the poetic genius too.
How did you see that?
Well, he spoke. I mean, he coined even the phrase poetic genius, and he thought of that as the this divine power that unified us all, and that through which all creation comes. Through all greatness comes.
And it seems like all of the word religion's mystical viewpoints seem to point to this notion of everything essentially coming back to a oneness. In one form or another, that seems to be a very common way for us to see and understand the universe.
For sure. And that's for me, that's like, it's both base camp and summit.
Right. So
it's where you start and where you finish.
But in between where we are now, where we are individuals, what is an individual? What?
Well, I mean, it's like to say that this is where we are now. I don't know that. Like, it depends on your perspective,
of course,
right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. But the consensus reality of the world in which we live right now involves the individual.
100%.
Yeah.
I mean, these are people who are not connected to the whole, right? Like there's a sickness. The world is suffering. And this is one of the things. So this connection with oneness, William James, which is interesting because you must be familiar with William James with your title, Turtles.
First psychologist, maybe. Yeah.
So William James talks about the different phases of spiritual experience, and one of the first experiences being that sense of oneness. And at that moment when I went through that door, I definitely was full on in that as well, but I had just transitioned into the second phase of the sick soul that William James calls, and that is when you're truly connected with a world that is suffering, you're not feeling bliss. You are feeling its pain. And to have true connection, right? It's not a positive feeling. And so having that true connection with the world, it's a physical, tangible thing. And you feel it in your body because it is your body. And it's overwhelming to have that amount of pain of the world in you. And it propels you. It's an energy force that propels you.
It is of the body.
We are only life.
Right.
This is what I'm trying to, all there is life. And the forces that are against life, that are it's very easy to see once you know all that there is that is. It's like antimatter versus matter, right?
Yeah. It's funny that someone who wants to be very, codified and rational about things, as I used to be more when I was a younger man, wants to exclude the things that you can't see or touch or measure.
Right.
And I admit it's still very difficult, if not impossible, for me to.
Can you not see it, touch it, or measure it? Like, can't you see it or touch it? I can.
Yeah.
Like, there are moments I definitely can. I think that it's all manifest.
I have a prejudice against that. So it's difficult for me to go, and I think that's kind of the door as well for me, in that I can't get beyond that point because I don't have complete evidence that it's going to be okay.
How about try gratitude?
That's a good one. Yeah. That might work.
Right? Like, I think grace is a good inroad into feeling that thing and feeling that connectedness, right? Like, I think that, not to say that you're not, but I think that is very often, when wonderful things happen? Like what are you crediting it?
Right.
And I'm not saying that you're not a part of it. Like this is what I'm saying is we're participants, and the more we participate in this, the more the world heals, right? Like the better. But I think that there's definitely like we take for granted so much, like, and we destroy it as a result, and like all of us. So it's very hard to be human. Like it's very, like, you know, one of the things, like I have to say, like one of my favorite creatures on earth is the bee. Because I think it's the only creature, at least on this planet, that I believe is anti-entropic. Yeah.
Okay.
So it gives back to the universe more than it takes.
Wow.
Right. So like it does zero harm, and the only time it, like if it stings, it dies. Like it's like it sacrifices itself for its community.
Yeah.
And it gives so much. Like so much of the food we eat is from the bees. So much of, like, we get honey, we get light, we get it used to preserve things with the wax and seal things with. I mean, so much we got from the bee.
Yeah.
And
that's definitely, I mean, yeah, and I think there's a lot of examples of it in the universe, really. I mean,
I don't think there's many.
Well,
I mean,
think
certainly,
the human brain is probably the most incredibly
but we
version of
incredibly destructive,
anti-entropy.
and even just like our waste product, like even just our human waste product is not so great.
Right.
You know, so like there just isn't anything like that. Like the bees have none of that. Like none of it. It's amazing. They're little miracles.
And their honey tastes delicious.
I'm not a huge fan of honey. Like that's the thing. I want bees, but I'm not a huge honey fan. But I am a big proponent of bee propolis. Just as an aside, it's my panacea for just about everything. I think it's brilliant stuff.
So have you been following the science around it, about their disappearances and demise or potential demise?
I have. And interestingly enough, like years ago, about maybe 20 years ago now, I literally had a bee in my bonnet, like in that expression, literally phase. Like, so I just got obsessed with bees, and I started writing a children's story, and the story was about the hive and the bees being in danger. And this is way before any of this stuff was happening. And I really feel at this now, when this started, I'm thinking, oh my God. And of course, you know, I never felt confident enough in the story to get it out. And it just wasn't, it was my first story that I wrote. Yeah. And so I didn't really have a whole lot of confidence in it. But 15 years later, and I hear this and I feel like, well, those are the bees telling me stuff's going on here. And please let everybody know.
Did it feel like you were delaying an opportunity you were given? Yeah. And you've taken that project on now? Or?
No. There are other people who are on it. You know, true. Like this is the thing. The problem is, you know, having these, what might be, say, prophetic visions, and since nobody wants to hear it and nobody believes it. Right. And even if when they're in the midst of it, they don't want to believe it. They're in denial. Like they just don't want to see it. So it's like, I feel like all my stuff has come that way. All of my work has been spirit speaking to the world. Right. Yeah. But, and that oneness, that sense of where we're supposed to go. Right. But nobody cares. So, you know, like it's the last thing they seem to want to hear right now. So I don't know what to, this is a story of throughout history of people like myself, right? So, yeah, how are you engaging with the world, you know, as an artist? Yeah. Trepidatiously. Yeah. You know, I struggle with being as honest as I want to be. And like this conversation is not a conversation I have. I try and disguise it in many ways through my work in subtler forms, I suppose. Maybe instead of taking the totality of my experience and sort of breaking it up into manageable chunks, perhaps. But it's there's not a whole lot of reception at this point in time. I think maybe the world is leaning towards like this Kensho moment, this Sartori experience where there's so much trauma that they are forced to make a switch in their mind, something like a defense mechanism. Like, for example, like when I had that death experience, like going back to that, when I had that experience, for me, what I felt was, first of all, an incredible sense of connection, and then that incredible sense of pain. And that led me to what I would say my Kensho moment, my Sartori moment, which then quickly translated to the Holy Spirit surrounding me, which is your lady in red.
Ah, that's how you see that.
Yes. And, but I can describe it in many other ways too. In Jewish religion, it would be the Shekinah.
I hear you. Yeah.
You may also refer it to the, or Jungian, it would be like the anima.
Right.
Right? It's
could be eros, could be all kinds of things. Yeah.
Sorry?
Eros or
yes. Although I think that's a little bit more limited in scope to describe it.
Yeah.
But yes. And but yeah, I mean it's love, right? But it's like a universal love. But so
that's
this
how
is
you
why
slice it.
Sorry?
It's how you slice it. Like from which frequency to look at it. You
exactly
see it
right.
With a different narrative attached to it. Yeah.
And I think you're seeing it in some ways as a negative way because the drugs are preventing you from seeing it in a positive way.
Maybe.
I think that, and wisely so, because it's not something you want to jump through.
Right.
Casually.
No. Yeah.
Because frankly, when I did, I didn't know if I was coming back. And in fact, it was very possible that I wasn't. Right. And I can't promise that anybody does.
It does, I think there's a lot of truth to what you're saying in the sense that it does also feel very analogous to falling in love.
Right.
In that I think in my personal experience, it would be very similar in that I would get to a door where I wouldn't really fully let myself go through.
Right.
So I wasn't able to fully jump into love.
It's faith.
Yeah.
But it's that, I mean, in this regard, it's about faith. It's about trust and it's about faith. And it's really hard in the real world. For me, that experience is about knowing who you are and what are you prepared to die for. So for me, feeling the pain of the world, I was like, well, how many does it take? Is it like a critical mass that we need? Do we need enough people to volunteer and give their lives to this? And so, I have never opened a Bible before in my life at that point, like ever. I came from 3 generations non-practicing atheists. Like I am not, like, I do not fit into my family, like when it comes to this sort of thing. Cool. So the thing that came to me was, I just forgot what I was going to say. I'm so sorry.
That happens to me all the time. This kind of subject matter, you can't remember which turtle you were sitting on top of.
It's true. It's true.
I think what I'm trying to also kind of keep coming back to is that, I mean, if we're talking about this universal oneness, and a lot of, I got to say, a lot of the things in my life revolve around the individual, and even the notion of the artist that, we like to think about it as a genius that splays the fruits of the universe out into the universe through itself, but we also give a great deal of attention and credit to the artist as an individual to be able to do that.
For sure.
Yeah.
I mean, we have to endure. We have to go through this world.
Right.
We have to experience things. We have to process all of this.
It's kind of an admirable thing to take on.
We're part of the machine. We're part of this whole. So, I mean, the idea of separating ourselves from the whole is ridiculous. And like any part that separates us from that whole is ridiculous. We're part of it. So yes, it's part of us and it's not separate from us.
Yeah. And isn't it interesting that I think as artists that, we talk about this, I think we kind of have this radar that if an artist is focused too much on themselves and the project is about themselves rather than about that is for their own personal glory or something,
Right.
you notice that and you don't consider that authentic art.
I'm reluctant to say that because I do think that we're all in a journey, we're all in a process, we're all at different states, and all of it is beautiful, right? Like all of it is, as long as we're actively participating and bringing our best.
Right.
Like God's going to meet us, like the universe is going to meet us where we're at, right? Like wherever we're at. And so this is why I think that this genius is in all of us. We're all capable of it and we all get it all the time. Like just some of us are a little bit more used to it and trust it. And I think also because the world does not receive this very well, like the idea of religion and spirituality and all of this stuff, if you're connecting with this and you think it's something that you want to put in your work, not everybody wants to, like, it's almost a political action to do that, right? To think for the group. It's a very socialist idea, and it brings out socialist concepts, like that the world is very uncomfortable with.
To think for the group or to think of the group? Because if it's to think for the group, I'd resist that.
No.
Well.
No, not think for. Think of the group.
Right.
Like think as part of. Like,
okay. Yeah.
But in terms of like why are you doing this? Why? Who are you? Do you have something to say? Like if you don't have anything to say to anybody, if you don't have any great ideas, like I think that the universe gives you those anyway, in spite of yourself sometimes. Like it's just, it works magic. It works magic in spite of ourselves. And some are going to pull in a little bit harder because they're going to be already there, right? But people are going to put it in there anyway.
So what is another person? I mean, what differentiates between you and me and Claire in the room or somebody
Your
else?
experiences. It's like, so your foot may feel something different than your hand, but it's still one body, right? It's going to have different experiences, different pains, different, from its experiences. And so there's an experience of it as a whole, and then there's experience of it as part.
I'm thinking in terms of that, if we're all connected in some sense, whatever that sense is, we might not be clear to us right now, but we are connected in some sense. That seems to be even not beyond scientific to consider that to be true. Field theory shows that things like that are not that bizarre in the universe. So we are connected in some sense.
100%, in every sense.
Right.
In every sense.
Every sense. But how are we different enough to be, like, what point do we notice that we're different enough? Because sometimes if people spend enough time together, you kind of see this in their actions and their behaviors that they start to mirror, but they start to melt into some kind of a storm of their own. They become a being, kind of an entity together sometimes. And it's almost like they're little storms and cyclones, and the other cyclones are kind of meshing together.
A gathering of atoms, it's like a gathering of energy patterns.
So it seems like the individual
you have your own
is
energy
fluid.
pattern, for sure.
The borders are fluid, let's put it that way.
100%. You are in constant flux. I am in constant flux. From the day we were born, we are adding material to ourselves. Right. In terms of growing phically, in terms of growing emotionally and growing experientially. And then we're getting rid of things at the same time constantly, and the sloughing off of stuff, are going through changes in how we think about things. Some people never think about things and don't change that much. They're not as active growers. And some people are like weeds. They're like, like nothing's going to keep them down. I'm one of those people, right? Yeah. Like I'm definitely a weed. I'm constantly like, you cannot, I've got deep roots and it's not coming out. But
what did Jesus say about the bitter weed? What was it?
Did he say something? I
think I relate that.
I'm not that bitter. I'm a little bitter.
No, but the weed itself is bitter. Yeah. But I think he's talking about marijuana maybe.
I don't know. Usually not. I don't think so. But so I think it's persistence of life. Like,
And so, yeah, I was thinking that it's our borders of what constitutes me is
Right.
fluid, and it can include other previously individual beings that mesh into becoming a being, or it could be part of a group of a team. Then there's kind of like a
I
team
don't think
being.
about it
There's,
that much, that far. You know,
well,
it doesn't
yeah.
matter.
No.
For me,
Yeah.
like for me, I guess like I don't knowing that there is this connection that is wiser than just me, because it knows all of everybody. It's that connected organism.
Right.
It's us, but we're like a point on it. We're like the way I kind of think about like everything and what we perceive and our limitations of perception is kind of like a sheet of paper that's been folded up into, you know, those magic things where you open up and you get different answers as you...
Like origami type
Yeah,
paper,
it's like this origami question thing, right? And so we kind of live in this middle of it bubble, right? Like where we just see that for the most part.
I think of it in terms of layers. It sounds like it's like
Yeah,
or
it's
a frequency or
exactly.
something that we're kind of tuned into. Yeah.
And some of it, you know, and William Blake talked about it being like the opaque eye versus something that can see through that, you know, just the organic opaque eye, and that you're seeing with the spirit as opposed
to the clarity of definition and
For sure.
discretion.
So I'm trying to think of what I was saying now. But the idea that you, I'm sorry.
Lost track. That's cool.
Totally lost
Circle
track.
back to the wagon. It seems like we're part of various selves, is what I'm trying to say. Is that depending on how you slice it or what layer you're looking at, what frequency you're tuned into, you can see yourself as a discrete being into yourself, or this room as a being right now. With
I
us
think
in
it's
there.
very uncomfortable
Your family is
seeing
a different
yourself
kind
as
of being.
one.
Yeah.
Like I don't feel like we're a mass of a blob. You know, like this isn't like, and I don't think God is a blob. You know. So
What is God then?
So I think it's that collective consciousness, but it has it comprises that individuality. I mean, that's part of it. That's the whole essence of it, is that it is diverse.
Right.
It is
Yeah. I think what I'm saying fits in with what you're saying, in the sense that if you then take the grandest perspective, which is for outside of all, then that is kind of like the God perspective of the whole of the universe.
we see
so
it.
we
in
take it
its-
from a smaller
but
perspective
it's the exact
inside
same thing.
it. Yeah,
like it's
we're
like
just part of it. Yeah.
But also, like if you think of like the whole macro kind of idea of all this connection, right, on this macro or even quantum scale, right?
Okay.
We see it every day in our day-to-day interactions. It just it's like a fractal, right? We see it in our day-to-day experiences. We just don't count it, right? We don't acknowledge it for what it is. So because it's so solid looking, it's so fragile in many ways. I don't think we value it as much. And I think that it's terribly resilient too. Like it's incredibly resilient. It has a force beyond us, right? But I mean, we are magic that makes it happen. We are amazing beings to be vessels for it. We just waste it.
I'd be curious to know, since the favorite books that you've just mentioned to me are what they are.
And also another book, actually, Michael Talbot's The Holographic Universe, which is a really interesting model.
Okay, let me put all three books together then, maybe.
Okay.
So what about this notion that, somebody came up with this kind of a clever way of thinking about the world as a simulation.
Right.
And if you're thinking of it as a simulation, you can you can think of the creator as the creator of the simulation, and then you can think about someone like a Jesus figure as being someone who is maybe an avatar of the creator who is thrown into the simulation to communicate and maybe update the software.
Right. So interesting that you say it like that, though, because there have been moments, like spiritual moments, where I swear I felt downloaded into, like of compressed information that I only got like snippets of. But over time, after the experience, it rolled itself out. And I've had that at least 2 or 3 times.
Right.
And it's like intense. It's like I think of it as an ecstatic moment. Actually, it's like you're getting so much information compressed into a short. It's like being downloaded into, and you can't see it all. There's no way to see it.
This model of thinking in a funny sort of way. It's like
in a kind of scary way.
Yeah, it's like some of those what we call individuals are upgraded with some kind of a change in software, but it doesn't maybe propagate fast enough. So what you do is you send somebody into the program, which is the Jesus figure. And then it disseminates the music.
Yeah, I've definitely had that kind of experience for sure. And on numerous occasions that it's like, okay, here's a bunch of information. You won't know what to do with it.
Right.
And actually nobody will care even once I give it to you.
Right.
But here it is anyway.
And it may or may not catch on.
Yes.
And sometimes it does.
I think I have to hope that. That now, it's now or never, right? So it's, for me, it's great even talking about this stuff because I don't talk about this stuff.
What do you think the message of the Christ is, or Jesus, the Christ, as I think of it? Yeah.
Oh my goodness. So I think, well, first of all, it's, he spoke about dying and being born again. So it's going through that door. And it's the annihilation of the separate self and becoming one with God and universe. So I think there's that.
Yeah.
Love thy neighbor as thyself. He said, why rob Peter to pay? We are all one. This is the message. We are all one. And so I think that was his message. I think he was a feminist. I think that he taught women directly, which was not okay at that time. And so I think that's one of the reasons they didn't want him alive, because he was upending everything, right?
He was a disruptor.
He definitely was. He saw the people who were paying for spiritual. What we're seeing today is the same thing that he was railing against. It's the same thing.
But here's an interesting
false teachers and people who it was more about money than it was about spirit.
All of those things that he's putting forth, these messages, which I tend to agree with most of them. It seems very practical also.
100%.
Yeah, it's almost like it's a reaction to the time.
It's for our good. Of course it is. Every single teacher that ever was had basically this message in different disguises for different times, for different people.
Right.
So the way I kind of see it is, and I'm hoping to work on a children's book about that one of these days, but the idea, and this is what I think actually the story of the Tower of Babel is about.
Okay.
And everybody's kind of got it a little bit wrong. Okay. Is that, if you deconstruct that and a separating of all the languages, all right, the goal was they were going to go up and they were going to get God. Right. And I don't think it was to fight against God so much as it was to seize that and achieve that summit, because that's what, this is what we want. We want to understand. We want to get close to God. We want to have that experience, however you define it, but I'm defining it as that connection of oneness, right?
Yep.
But it's an impetus for us, is that human connection. And that human connection leads to compassion and to empathy and to all of those things. So they're trying to get God. They don't understand it, or they just they want the power, whatever it is. And God sends them all apart because they're only going after it for their ego and themselves. And what happens is they all get this image. They don't get the image of God. They get like this holographic image of God in a way. So they each get a piece of the puzzle. But they all think they have the whole puzzle. And what they need to do, and they all have the same message, just from like a slightly different angle. And they just need to come together and find all the pieces, and we all need to come together and see it as one.
It's like we all have a different shade of it that you put together to
exactly.
see the full picture.
In one picture. It makes one picture. And this picture is truth. It's the one
It's the whole
thing. It's
yeah.
the thing. And it's not just this earth, and it's not just this people, and it's the universe. It's creation. It's all being. It's everything that is. You know, like God said, what's your name? Like, I am that I am. I am.
And so does Popeye say that.
That's right.
As is what as
And he's
is.
strong, right?
It's almost there. He's a minor deity.
So,
true. Yeah.
you know, and they all speak of this, you know, like this, I mean, it is a journey. I think that, and I hate using the word, it's a journey, to be honest with you. It's so overused.
Yeah.
It's
Let's think
so
of another
overused.
word, but the idea is still good.
It is. I mean, it does feel like that. That's for sure. And
Yeah.
and our path is never straight. Like it is messed up, and it is partly because of the obstacles that we face in life that don't belong there. Like they're like false obstacles. You know, like they don't make sense.
Right.
And there's so many of them, especially right now. I just feel like it's getting worse and worse and worse. And at the same time, I do have hope. Like I do think that it's going to move us into a.
Well, this is interesting because I mean, what I was just when we were going through some of the messages of Jesus, it sounds like they're practical advice for a group of humans to get along together.
Right.
To maybe improve their system. So to me, it seems like it's
to get
also
along,
a social.
but also to call out.
Yeah.
Like to not just like blind faith believe and give it to somebody else to take care of, you know,
Right.
like that wasn't what he was about. Like I think that's the error in the message is that, you know, like I did it all for you, so now you don't have to do anything, you know, like how do we learn from that? How do we grow from that?
He's
I don't
brought
think
a
that's healthy or
playbook in
good,
a way.
you know?
Yeah, he's spreading the meme of this way of cooperation, but he's doing it through a spiritual narrative of it. That is, we are all connected into this life force of being that runs through us, the Christ energy or whatever, however you want to see
Right.
it. He's using a spiritual message to justify saying, well, this is all true because of the spiritual message, but the truth is you all need to work together, live together, love together, and everything else is going to be magical and great. And
I think
yeah.
so. Yeah, that would be nice.
So it's like
right?
very practical
I
and
didn't
very
think it'd be
spiritual.
so hard, right?
Mixed.
Like who thought it'd be so hard?
Yeah.
Like really? Like it's not that hard.
What's going wrong?
I don't know. Like this is the antimatter matter thing. It's like it really is forces of chaos versus like it feels that extreme to me. Like it feels so. That's how it feels. It feels like there's these forces of destruction. Like how does the earth get to look the way it does in 100 years?
Yeah.
Like have we no and even to this day that people can look at it and just stand idly by for the most part and let it happen.
But where does isn't destruction necessary for all of this spiraling upward or down?
I don't think so.
How do we accept
I don't
that?
think
No?
it's.
You don't-
I don't
no?
believe that. Like that's the idea. Like the starving artist or you need suffering to. I don't think you do.
You don't need it in every instance, but doesn't the universal balance need some kind of movement of it?
I don't believe it. No.
But how does anything happen then?
What do you mean?
It seems like every event is kind of a redistribution of these kind of things. It's like these forces are kind of moving around. In order for any kind of event to happen, any kind of time to take place, there has to be kind of a redistribution of...
So I guess that's the idea of do you want to live in time or do you want to live in eternity?
Well, I mean, we live in time most of the time.
But we don't. We think we do.
Okay. Yeah.
But we don't. And it's a paradigm that's hard to break out of, right? But I think it is a paradigm that is born of illusion. It's a very powerful illusion, but it's still an illusion.
So we don't live in time?
Not really. I mean, everything is now. It's all is, right? It all is, all was, all will be. It's all one. And then this going through this door collapses that. So it's quite apparent, right? Like it is quite apparent that there is no time, right?
If you go through that door.
Yeah.
I would agree with that. And so there is a resistance to leave time.
Correct.
Right.
It's death. Of course there's a resistance.
Of course, yeah. And that resistance is built into the body.
100%.
And the body has spent millions and millions of years working its way through and becoming the way it has through the evolutionary processes. And one of the most strongest forces within the cyclones is that desire not to go away, not to disappear.
Exactly.
To perpetuate,
and
to
yet,
continue.
what if your death is your survival?
Right.
What if your death is your salvation?
But that's an abstract idea. Your body can't process
it takes
that.
Moving beyond that.
Right.
Right.
Mm-hmm. It's an abstract idea that you're kind of trying. It's like, you want to eat, I don't know, a cheesecake. Sometimes I get there and you think it's not really going to be good for me, but I want to eat it. But it's your mind, your abstract idea overcomes what your body wants and says, no, you know what? I'm not going to eat it because it's going to make me sick right now. I'm probably
your higher
gonna have
self.
Lactose. Yeah.
Your higher self. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so it requires
the one that wants
that.
what's good for you.
Yeah, but my body's going to say, stop.
Right.
Because it's just reacting in a kind of
instinctual.
It's not abstract at all.
It's how we've developed as
So is it a
creatures.
practice that I have to keep going there, and it's like my abstract mind has to train it, just like I train myself to whatever, to do anything. It's your mind kind of overcoming what your body is often wanting to do, which is to stop.
Right. But you also, at the same time, you don't want to jump prematurely. You want to, I think that these are certain things. Like, you don't want to just jump into the pool. Although I have to say, it didn't take me that long. Like, I did kind of jump into the pool a little bit.
Yeah.
But for me, I knew who I was, and I knew why I was going, and I felt that presence, and I felt that what I wanted was to make a difference, to be part of however many it takes to flip that switch and change the narrative and have, hopefully people see what I see, like, and have that connection, but.
Well, I got to say, I think earlier it came up and you were saying something and you said, well, maybe not you might be connected, but to be honest, I have issues with connection. Like it's not so obvious that I'm somebody who seeks out connection.
Right.
You know what I mean?
I think
it might seem that to a lot of people, but it's actually very kind of hard to penetrate.
Penetrate Jake?
Yeah, and in a sense, maybe impossible in some circumstances. Lest I go to jail. I don't know, whatever. But so it's this connection. I'm not entirely sold on it all the time.
No, I get it.
And
I get
quite
it.
often
Listen,
I'm running
people
away
are
from
awful.
connection.
Like people can be awful, and it can hurt. Like this is the thing. We are all hurting. And in many different ways. Some people aren't. I mean, the psychopaths aren't hhurting that much, I don't think. But, most of us are hurting. Yeah. So
we have our mammal parts working, yeah.
We react often in those conditions angrily, wrongly. We shut things down because it's too much, so we don't connect because it's overwhelming. Like, I understand it. Believe me. Like, when I had that experience where I felt the pain of the world, like, honestly, I couldn't. That's what got me to move. I couldn't take it. It was too much, and it's hard to avoid in this world. Like, if you're a caring person, so you become overwhelmed, and the only way of coping with it, in many ways, is to put up boundaries and a wall, and just like I can't. It's too much. But I think there's a way of approaching it in a way that doesn't become overwhelming, that you can deal with it. You have to. I think that it's our duty to each other, to the world, to our future, to our generations, to life.
Can I describe another experience I had? This time it was on LSD.
Okay.
And I think it kind of relates in the sense of the experience of it. I was listening. I was with one of my closest friends, and on an acid trip.
Okay.
And
I've never done LSD, so I don't know.
But it's not that.
It's
a clearer form of it.
Yeah. No. I'm not judging.
and well, this is kind of, and quite recently, just before that, I had an MDMA trip as well. So I think they were still kind of in my system. So it's kind of an unusual situation. And we had on one of those 1970s classics station on or something, and the music was playing. And I realized that, I'd be listening to a song and kind of getting drawn into it. And then when the chorus came, I went into this kind of convulsion where I just kind of went, totally, my back arched and my head went up to the sky, and went into this ecstatic state where I just visualized all this energy just kind of flowing into my chest, in and out, like going through it constantly. Right. And I felt like I could just stay in there if I wanted to, but every now and then it would just get too exhausting and I just kind of pull myself back.
Right.
And but it only occurred in songs in which there was an emotional buildup where there was kind of an explosion of what I considered to be like authentic, whatever that means. It seemed real.
Spirit, like there was something that's speaking to you like directly.
But also the singer was saying it in a way that sounded like they weren't faking it, right? So like some songs went by and it didn't work, even though they were meant to be, tearjerkers or whatever.
Songs are. You'll have to give me like a playlist.
Yeah, and I think I wrote down some of them. And the ones that did really affect me were the ones, that seems true, because that singer's really feeling this. Right. And then it was like, I got drawn into it. And there I was inside this emotional...
That's kind of how I felt with reading Blake.
Huh.
In the sense that I was part of it somehow.
Right.
Like in some strange way, I became part of that creation, right? Which in many ways we all are.
Yeah. But when you go through that door, is that where you go?
No, there's nothing. There's no you to
so
nothing. There's nothing.
It's not the joy in that sense.
There's nothing. There's no joy. There's no you. There's no sight, no sound, no light, no nothing. There's nothing.
I like the joy though. That was good.
But this is why you want to be. This is why life is it.
Yeah.
Because that's where the joy is. Mm-hmm. There's nothing on the other side.
Right.
Nothing.
So who wants to go there?
You go there to empty yourself of yourself.
But you go there to come back? You don't go there to stay?
I think so.
Right.
Correct. Mm-hmm. Unless maybe you're not meant to come back, in which case maybe you don't come back.
But how are you meant or not meant to come back?
I don't think you would get through. To be honest with you, I just don't think you would have the power. I think that it is a kind of power that meets you halfway. Mm-hmm. And I don't think that like as a separate one thing that alone we have that power to actually do it. So I think that that's why you have like this guide, like this Holy Spirit, with a comforter, like is given different names. But this is.
So you saw that the being that I'm encountering to be
for me it
Holy
appeared
Spirit.
It appeared as like my room was red. Like I was awake, my eyes were open, I was sitting on my bed and my room became red. And I knew what I was going to do already. Like the day before I knew, and that spirit was around me. And it was very loving and very red. And for me, what came to mind was blood and a womb and love and fire and all of those things. And this is the baptism by fire, as spoken about. This is the baptism. It's not the baptism of water. That's presages. That's this is the baptism by fire. And it is like the burning away of everything. And it's, you have, in order to jump through that, it is perfect faith, right? Like it is perfect trust, perfect faith in not only who you are, but what you're willing to die for.
So what do you think would happen to me after going through there?
I couldn't
after
tell
coming
you.
back.
If you you weren't ready, you mean? If you
or
didn't
if you
make
were,
it, or
like in your example, in your case, for example,
what happened when I came back?
When you came back, how were you different?
So, I would say there's subtle differences more than anything that took time to, because I don't think I understood the experience right away. It took me time for it to be shown to me what the experience was. And like I said, I'd never opened up a Bible before, but the first thing that happened when I came back, and I kind of think I was gone for maybe 10 minutes, something like that is what it felt like, I guess, when I came back. I sort of had it noted down, and I was sitting up, and when I came back, I was lying down, and I felt hands cradling me back into being, in a way, like from my head, and I heard what turned out to be the Lord's Prayer, but I didn't know who said it or what it was at the time. Like, that's how ignorant I was, right? Yeah. Like, my background's Jewish, too, so this is like, but... I
had a similar experience recently that while I was tripping, the words Hari Om came into my mind, and I had no idea what it was until I looked it up after
Hari
the fact.
Om?
Yeah.
Harat Ayom, which is
just kept coming to me.
Is that from like the Rosh Hashanah? Behold, the birth of the universe. Is that?
I think I had to look it up, and to be honest, I don't even remember what exactly it all
So I
meant.
actually
But
did a painting.
it's from a tradition that I'm not a part of, but it
Right.
seemed like, and I
I
don't
did
know
a
if it's
painting that's
coincidental.
the whole words throughout
Really?
the whole painting, and it's about the Shekinah, which is about the Holy Spirit, like the same idea.
I
It's
wanted to
about
go
that.
back and investigate that to see what that was all about.
Well, when we're done here, we can look it up actually, and I'll
yeah.
find out if that's what you're talking about.
Because
But
it's
it
like-
could be that,
Yeah,
and
I
I
don't-
just did a
yeah.
piece about that. So like, this is like magic.
So that sounds like something speaking through me in that case.
Magic.
Maybe this is true. You got it.
You got it looking up?
What is it?
It's
Which means these are the three words of the three forms of God.
3 forms of God.
Refers to supreme infinite spirit or person. So, but I think you're right. There's a Hindu Hariom, and
there's a Hebrew Harom. I can't honestly. I don't speak Hebrew, but I don't really know.
Sharon. Is that what you said?
No, it's Harom had Olam or something like. Oh, I'd have to look it up.
We'll look
honestly,
it up later.
I'm
We'll
the
put it up on the
worst.
site. We'll put a link.
Okay, yeah.
People
So,
look
but
it up.
it's the idea of like the
Yeah.
birth of the universe. And I actually did a painting that it was going to be in a book, and I didn't really like the way it turned out, so I replaced it with a different image at this point. But it's the same idea, and it's the idea of this creative spirit, this creative force that just continually creates itself. I think periodically the entire universe is capable, maybe even through one person, completely annihilating itself and regenerating itself. And I think that, like, through that black hole type of thing, right? And it goes through a new multiverse, and a new. To be honest, I think that's what Jesus was all about. And what he was talking about was this, I come and bring a new heaven and a new earth.
Well, he's talking about leaving the simulation, going to the next layer.
Yeah, but I don't think of it as a simulation. Like,
Well, call it what you will,
it is
but
not a simulation.
It's a simulacra. I mean, we're living within it. It's a reality. Call it what you will.
We are it. We're not living within it. We are it.
I agree with that too. Yeah, you're right. It's another way to phrase it.
I mean, as soon as you say we're living within it, you're separating yourself out of it, and that's not.
Yeah, I'll buy that.
truth.
That's true. Yeah, that's a better way to say it.
So I mean, it's subtle, right?
Yeah,
but it's distinct. It's really distinct, and it's funny. Like those distinctions, which look really subtle, as they pan out, become massive.
True enough.
They're massive
Yeah,
breaks.
because they impact all kinds of other
Exactly how we think.
pathways.
So it's like I really think we just need to. We've had just the worst teachers, and people have twisted the words. Like I think the words of Paul. I think he's the first Antichrist. I think he just completely twisted. I mean, he hated women.
Yeah,
He
we're
just took
susceptible
the words and twisted right around.
to the messages of
He pandered, I think, to the Greeks and the Romans and the Jews and the people who wanted to maintain a status quo of power, and women were not part of that.
Have we rectified that or on
Are
our
you
way?
kidding me? Are you kidding? Did you see this last election? Are you kidding
We're
me?
not there yet.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
No.
So what do we need to do? What's going on?
We need to have a new female teacher, right? Like,
Yeah.
if another male god comes around and starts telling me stuff,
There was a male god?
you know what I mean? Like another male they're all
yeah.
men.
Yeah.
They're all men. Like we need to hear. Like
It's been a
we need
long
to hear
time since
other
I've thought of
voices.
God in a male way. To be honest,
God,
it's so
are you
weird.
kidding me?
Yeah, it's like you're right though. Like I remember as a
It's
kid, you
everywhere.
would see
Every
that,
religion.
but it's been a long
Every
time.
religion has a male teacher
I guess I've been kind of
that we've
converted. Yeah,
adopted.
because I always now think
Well,
of it
maybe
more
because
in
you're
a
male,
feminine.
you don't see it as much. Maybe you just
No, but
take
I
it for
actually see
granted.
it in a feminine way. Like
Do you
I
really? I
think
guess because of your experiences, maybe
maybe, yeah.
more profound. I don't know.
because
I mean, I would think I would too, but I don't. Like for me at the time, to be honest with you, there were two presences, both a male and a female. So there was this. To be honest, the first day there wasn't. It was just the female in this red presence, right? And I definitely felt it as comforting and guiding and loving. Like I didn't get any of that negativity thing. That said, I was terrified because I didn't know if someone was going to find my body. I didn't know what was going to happen. I thought there was a definite possibility that I'd die. My thesis on the whole thing of what I thought was going to happen was that I would vanish and I would disappear into God, disappear into nothingness, disappearing, going to the a priori,
Right.
like what made this? What's back to this?
Back
just
to
the
before,
thought.
before.
Maybe just like before being, when it, and I don't even know if thought is outside. Do you know what I mean? But it's like
before time.
before everything. And so there was that kind of thinking about it, I guess. And at the same time, the day of that I actually managed to make it, because I was scared. I was just scared. I couldn't do it. I couldn't make that jump because, you know, with my neighbor, like who could take care of my cat? And, like it was ridiculous. It was very mundane things.
High stakes. That's true.
But, whatever. At a certain point, it's like, okay, I know this is worth it. No fear.
Wow.
And the next day, and basically what happened was, it was kind of like I was not threatened, but it was like, okay, it's judgment day. It's time now, right? And I heard a male voice. And it was very powerful, and it had one word, and that was choose. And so for me, it was my time to decide. And I didn't think of them as separate entities. I thought of it as just different aspects of the one. And now I could be wrong about all of that, to be honest with you. I really don't know. But I jumped, and I didn't jump into one or the other or a person or a being. I jumped into my non-existence. And I jumped into...
So you chose that. You were given the directive to choose.
Yes, I chose to die for
Right.
the world. Is basically,
Right. Yeah.
I mean, if you want to talk about that whole Jesus thing,
Crucified yourself.
I did. I did exactly that, and that's what that's his message, right?
Right.
Like he did it physically.
Here's an
This is
example.
what you do.
This is what you do.
Follow me.
Yeah, follow me. Interesting.
Take up your own cross. I mean, this is his whole message,
And we all have one to bear. Yeah.
and this is part of it, right? It's honestly, after, when you ask me what happens afterwards, life is not that great. It's not like I was thinking afterwards, it's like, oh my God, I got everything. I'm in.
Right. Yeah.
Everything's going to be great.
Well, yeah, it doesn't sell on that
so not
level.
great.
No.
It is so much harder. It is so much harder. So you don't, you step.
Is it a peace? Is it a, because it's not all of those things, but is it a balance? Is it a...
No. I think it's a force that moves us towards that.
So it's a movement, it's a force. Okay. It's
But
not a calm necessarily.
There's no calm to be had in this world if you're connected in it. There's no calm. There's only work to be done.
That's good. That's encouraging, because I think, still waters are not a good idea. Yeah.
No, it's a swamp, this is the thing. This is, if you are a constant moving thing, growing constantly, we're always learning. There's always more. This is never boring. I mean, the idea of beauty and incredible being boring is foreign to me.
It's a sin to me to be bored.
There's nothing but interesting things out there. Nothing but another rock to pick up and look under and see what's going on. And
tying those two ideas that you just said together, I had similar experiences where I'm kind of get to a core where I'm given a choice. It's like choose, and it's either like I'm going to choose living or I'm going to just choose dying in a way.
But if you choose dying to live, that's a different choice.
But I see it in terms of motion and non-motion. To me, it's like either choose to move or not move. It's like if you sit still, you're just going to fade into nothing, and maybe. But if you move, you're going to live. Is how I see it, and my choice at that moment is to move, is to say, yes, I'm still in this life. I'm not gonna just sit still.
Right. I'm not like I've always, maybe sitting in Buddhist meditation for many hours at a time works for some people, and I think that its focus, its purpose, is to get to the point that I got to in a different kind of way. Right. I really liked. Peter Uspensky. I don't know if you're familiar with Peter Uspensky. So he was a student of Gurdjieff. And I didn't really get into Gurdjieff, but I did like Peter Uspensky, particularly his book, The Fourth Way, because The Fourth Way really distinguishes itself from Eastern philosophies to deal with the Western mind. And the idea of being aware of our thoughts and things instead of trying to annihilate them and focus on just one thing, you know, like, or, you know, life as a meditation of, you know, chop wood, carry water, right? Where you're just focused on this mindful task. It's different. It's a way of becoming aware of every single thought in your head and becoming aware of the universe as it speaks through you and to you and so on. And for me, that spoke to how I work. And the more I listened to my inner, you probably are already a head listener a lot, no?
Yeah.
Like,
There's a lot going on.
You're aware of what's... But I think being aware of every thought, like every thought, like being hyper aware of every thought that goes through our head is really interesting experiment. Because the more we do it, the more we learn about who we are and who we want to be and what is us. Like, what is that thought me? I don't feel like I connect with that thought. So where does that come from? What is that thought?
Yeah.
Or that's a thought I like. It doesn't feel like it comes from me, but I feel like I participated in it somehow, like in its genesis, you know, in its union of things, and it manifests through me or to, like, it's nebulous that, like, is it, as soon as you say it's outside of me, feels weird too, because that doesn't feel right.
This reminds
it's
me
in
of,
me, and it's just of a piece.
Sometimes, you know, when you're kind of in that state and you're with friends and you're kind of floating around and you come up with this kind of a small, brilliant conversation about something that seems to be profound and impactful. And then because you're kind of stoned in some sense, you forget entirely what you were just talking about.
Right.
And that,
That's happened a few times right here.
and that used to bother me at first. I was like, I would try to pull it back and, you know, concentrate to try and remember it. And then I realized that, no, just let it go. And even if I don't remember it in the way I think of remembering, it had its impact on me. That what was profound and positive that I felt, I still felt that.
Right.
So that idea had its impact. It already did its good.
For sure.
It's floated away, and it's likely to come back anyway.
Probably.
So, and it
as you
seems to be a
process
healthier
it comes in
approach.
different ways. Like one of the things is, like, and again, going through that door, you don't want to be grasping. Right?
Yeah.
Like this is an offering, not a taking. And I think you have to think of it like that.
Sure.
So as soon as you grasp, it just falls right away because it's the ego. And that's why they talk about attachment and things like that, in Buddhism and so on. Interesting, like Mu, like the idea of Mu in Zen Buddhism. And I don't know if I'm pronouncing it right. So it's MU is how it's spelled. I can picture the Chinese character for it, and it basically means fire. It's like there's a fire part of it, and it's the burning away of the separate self. It's the annihilation of the self. And in Sufism, they have the idea of fana. And fana is also the idea of the annihilation of the self. I'm pronouncing it wrong.
No, that's I don't know. That's a Turkish pronunciation of it. Yeah.
So it's that same.
Fena, they would say, I guess.
F-A-N-A, I think is spelled.
Well, I remember my
English
mom,
characters.
there's expressions with that word in it, like fena oldum, which you say, like, I have become fena.
Which means?
And you usually say that when you're exasperated.
Nothing.
You're like, no, when you're like
exhausted, like
exasperated,
emptied.
when you're actually, in the colloquial sense anyway, like my mother would get upset at me doing that. She'd say, fena oldum. It's like, I'm fed up with you, kind of a response, you know? It's like it's too much. It's overwhelming. It's,
interesting. Interesting.
So it's taken on that colloquial meaning.
Really? I can see how it could morph into something like etymology is so interesting.
amazing.
Like I could go down a rabbit hole with words. Like
Love that.
I think it's so interesting because I think that words are like this amazing root of understanding and deepness and into who we are. I could go on forever. I could read the dictionary for fun, you know, like I do.
I used to. Yeah, I mean, they definitely shape the way we engage in the world, be in the world. But sometimes those words are based on something about us, but sometimes they're random. But whatever the case may be, the words that we choose to use and has a I mean, do you believe that certain cultures have different characters based on their languages being different? Like, is there?
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
I mean, the idiom and what's important to them is right in the character and the language and the word and what they look like.
So it's very
everything.
discernible. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I mean, for me,
Seems to be.
Like, I became a little bit obsessed with Japanese culture, and I've written a couple of books that sort of heavily. And I just spent such a long time sort of researching Japanese culture. And then in the process, I tried to learn some Japanese and the characters so I could use it and idioms and so on. And I think that you learn so much about a culture and a history. I don't think we learn so much about ourselves as much, like in terms of spiritual things as much, although it's there. It is there. But its evolution is fascinating of language and the pairing of symbols.
Yeah, and I don't know if you know this about my first language is Turkish, and the Turkish language does not relate it to any of the European languages or the Arabic languages. No,
really?
It's not. It's not related to the Indo-European family, so it's beyond that as well. So it's like, more closely related to Mongolian, Korean, and Japanese than it is related to any European or Arabic or Indian or Indo-European language. So I kind of felt like when I came to Canada and started learning English, obviously it felt like a different way of thinking. But I'm wondering, did it feel more different to me because I come from a different family of languages, as opposed to someone that comes from German, for example, is going to have a lot of similarity in the way that they approach the universe. It's like, and I have to say, I'm very thankful that I had that kind of dissonance and intersection between these two universes when I was, around the age of 5. It's like I think I clued in very quickly. Oh, the universe is not set. Like, it depends on what frame you're looking at it. Like I feel like I realized that because of the language being different.
100%.
So my friends, I'm trying to translate something to them. Well, this means that, and I realized, wait a sec, you can't even translate that. It's like some things don't even work, and there's no one-to-one correlation. And then you realize, oh my God, the universe is not the way I thought it was, and its language brings that out.
They've I mean, this is an interesting topic, but they found that, so many things. One is that if you read from right to left as opposed to from left to right, you're more empathetic for whatever reason. It develops more empathy. They found that I'm just completely losing it. This is the worst.
Sorry, which one was it? The right to left?
Yeah, so it's the opposite the way we do in English, but in the way
it's
they
more
do it in Asia and in Hebrew.
Hebrew and Arabic.
Exactly right. So it tends to, that's the idea at any rate. It's, I guess it's maybe
like
going from right brain to left brain. I'm not really sure what the, or left brain to right, I don't know.
There could be some truth to that.
And what was I going to say about the different languages?
Yeah. So what languages do you speak other languages?
This is what I was going to, So they found that when you speak a different language, like if you speak multiple languages, you're kind of different in each language.
You're a different person.
Right? And just think about the zero in Arabic, what a change that made, right? To how we even contemplate things.
Yeah.
So
it opens up the metaphysical
100%.
In a different way. Yeah. So,
like, there's just so many instances where language really does the shaping. There's I don't know if it's in Chinese. I don't remember
Speculate.
now. But there was one, I think it's an Asian language.
Okay, yeah.
Or how it works is that they have no time. The way it works is there's only...
There are some languages like that, yeah.
Only present, I guess, or something like that. So it causes them to think and save differently financially and deal with these things differently because they just don't have a concept of that in their language to... So, I mean, there's so many instances of things like that. It's fascinating.
Yeah, we take for granted that we think that because there are words for things that those are the only things there are.
Right.
And
we are very limited by our language, for
and
sure.
we then in the future create a word that's in between two existing words and, where was that before? Right. Just like naming colors.
Right. They say we only saw
shades.
blue recently. Right. Our eyes, it's...
Yeah.
And then there's that I don't know if it's apocryphal, if it's true or anything, but that idea that... there were ships on the shore, and this a native population didn't even see them until they were right up on their gate because they had no
Right.
experience of what that would be.
To have a
kind of thing.
large object in the distance on the water.
You know?
That's true. I could see that working. Yeah, like Homer's Odyssey has no mention of blue, and no ancient text has
This is
mention
what
of blue.
I remember
And
reading,
he describes the sea as a wine black sea or wine dark sea.
Yes. So it's
they think
possible our
wine is that
receptors have
color.
evolved over, time to perceive these things, and it's so subtle that we don't notice it.
And it's funny because it's also things that are very common, which is water and sky. So I think it's also has to do with the fact that we don't make words for things unless we need to. And if they're
Right.
so
What do we
plentiful,
call this?
if it's so plentiful, you don't even notice it.
Right.
It's like you're swimming in water and you're breathing in the air, which is the sky, and it's blue. So why even talk about it? It's everywhere.
Well,
So
or they didn't even
comes
see
up.
it as blue.
Right.
Like it could have been
Right.
gray. They could have been colorblind to
Right.
that, right? Like it could be something that
the
we only
physical reason.
developed.
Yeah. There's some theories to that, but they think it might have more to do with linguistic and culture than anything else. I wonder. Yeah.
I don't know.
It could be cones.
I really don't know. I think we're so, I just can't imagine there wouldn't be any, although, you go back, I mean, how far back are they talking about? Because,
Well, Homer's like in the thousands of years, yeah.
Because, the Egyptians used plenty of blue in their art. They had the lapis lazuli, they dyed their things indigo, they had...
Yeah, and that precedes Homer, yeah.
Yeah, does it? Yeah, I guess so, yeah. I'm not sure what the years
So
are,
maybe
but
it's
that's the
cyclical.
kind of...
But
yeah,
that gives more weight to
exactly.
the cultural theory, yeah.
So I don't know.
It's... we have two cones color cones in our eyes, and some people have three, which allow them to see much more
I think,
detail.
I don't know.
It's usually women that have that third cone.
Oh yeah, a lot of artists too.
Yeah.
I remember that Tess was going around, and all my friends were like, "I can do this," and I can do this.
Yeah.
So I think I'm one of those people. But I also think that you ask like what happens when you come back. I think also I feel like while I was already sensitive to hearing and seeing and feeling, I feel like when I came back, it was that much more intense. So the seeing and the hearing and the feeling was just that much more. And I feel like it's like just sort of partly defense mechanism. Like I think like evolution is a defense mechanism. And, here you've got circumstances and you have to change in order to meet those circumstances. You have to figure what that is. And this is what I feel like that's what it was. It was that kind of like an evolutionary kind of defense mechanism. Like here, like what does it take? Here I go, blah. And then you have these new gifts. And traditionally it's called the gifts of the Holy Spirit. But I think that they're part of there's a purpose for them. It's an early warning system.
Yeah,
a bit of a canary in a coal mine.
It's like we have access to a lot of information and sense data that we don't that sometimes. Well, for example, I think we used to rely on our noses more. We don't have to because things are much more consistently smelling now, and we all take showers most of the time and everything else. So you're not paying attention to all that detail, and that kind of goes away as being useful information.
For sure. And
what
bees
else are we?
see. Look at the flowers. They see all different patterns and things that we don't see. They see spectrums that we don't see. Mostly, and I think that we can see into those different dimensions and different spectrums. And I think that it's hard for me to know whether it's my eye that changed or my the spiritual eye. You know what I mean? What is it that changed? Did the universe open to me or did I open to it? Is it a bit of both? Like, what's going on? Like, are we just did we just become
That's
friends?
Yeah. But get this though. Like I have two cones, and let's say you have three. So you can see millions of shades where I see maybe only thousands. There's a type of squid, I think, that has 16 cones.
Amazing.
So it's like trillions of shades or whatever that is.
I think there are overlords at some point. The
they
squid
might
and
be
the octopus.
super intelligent beings that we're just like cutting up and frying in garlic.
So,
are we totally
honestly,
missing something there?
I do think that one day we'll be like I do think the squid and the octopus will be having communications with them at some point in time. I think they're that interesting, and they're just starting to develop social groups. And
I don't think, maybe they haven't needed them in a while. They've already
maybe,
gone
well, this is
beyond.
it. The pressure of the environment causes them to
I
behave
think,
differently.
why would you evolve 16 cones unless there was some use for it? And it seems that
they can mimic. They
Yeah.
they can turn themselves looking like a human being. Like they can do.
They do a
are
light show.
shapeshifters.
They do a light show for each other. Yeah.
They're amazing. They're shapeshifters. They're color and they're amazing creatures.
So what kind of detailed information is being sent across? If you have that many shades and you have the receptors for that many shades and you're changing your body colors to communicate with the other squid, what are they saying to each other? Why do they need that much complexity in the language, right?
Right.
It's kind of interesting. Yeah, we might
for
be totally
sure.
missing something there.
For sure. For sure we are. There's definitely something going on, right? Like, they're fascinating creatures. I think they're brilliant. I think that there's something really spooky,
Yeah.
brilliant. And they're, from things that I've seen, you see some really cool videos of them really trying to connect in many ways with people.
Yeah.
I've seen one where there was someone diving and swimming like a scuba diver, and this squid comes or octopus comes along and starts shaping itself to look like and swimming alongside. Wow. When you think of an alien being trying to connect somehow, is that
Yeah,
it's
we
foreign.
have aliens on our planet that we haven't learned how to communicate with.
That's true.
I
think.
Yeah. Did you see this movie, Arrival? It just
haven't
came
seen
out
it yet, so
recently.
don't spoil it for
I
me.
won't spoil it. I was anxious to
I'm dying to
watch
see
it, but
it.
language obviously plays a role in it.
Right.
Yeah, that's not giving anything away.
Yeah, I'm excited to see it because from what I understand, I think it's probably a very accurate impression of what you'd face with something that's.
I think it'd be even harder than that.
What is it? Is it
Yeah.
life? Is it not life? Is it being? Is it? Can I communicate with it? What does it mean?
It's going to be so different that we're not going to be able to. We might not even notice it's alive. Something
For
could be so
sure.
different than
sure.
us. Yeah.
For sure. Who knows, right? I've had my own things that I have no names for them because I don't even know how to understand them because they're so alien, they're just, what is it? I don't know. I have no, it's like that ship on the sea. I don't know. I see it. That I do. I see it, but I don't know what it is. It's
true.
part of life. I mean, for me, everything just becomes part of that. And, in some ways, fear goes away as a result of that. I'm not really afraid of it because I am that. Right?
You've been there. You've been back.
There and back again, like in The Hobbit,
You lived to tell the tale.
Yeah.
Amazing. Do you have a musical outlet? Do you? How does music? How does
I'm not
music fit into your
particularly-
life?
I love listening to music. I haven't listened to a lot of music lately because I find iTunes really annoying. As far as
Yeah.
it's just costly, and I feel like I've bought my music over and over and over again 1,000 times, and I don't want to buy a subscription, and I don't like having all my music trapped in this thing, and so, and I'm not always online.
Right.
So if I can't stream, I don't stream stuff.
But you have an urge to make it or to
No.
to sing or bang pots?
Zero. Absolutely zero. But I like to sing. I'll sing on my own in my apartment,
Nice.
just hum. And that's a big deal because I used to
Yeah.
be so nervous about my own voice.
Oh, no kidding.
And-
Yeah, that's hard to.
And I just,
Project
I'm
that.
very low voice, right? So songs aren't made for me.
Yeah.
So I always fumbled with all my friends who were musicians. I hung out with musicians, but I have no talent whatsoever for it. I have rhythm. I think I could have been a drummer if I had applied myself because I have rhythm.
Right.
But
know-
I have no desire for it.
Well, the thing with me is that I was a drummer. That's the only thing I took a few lessons in. So I'm kind of drawn to this percussion instruments. But for me, singing was, and still is, probably one of the most vulnerable points that I could put myself in. Because it seems to me that singing is revealing a lot
Right.
And maybe even more than you want to.
For sure.
And so
But
it's
especially
kind
if
of
you're
like,
writing your own words.
Yeah.
I mean, for me, like I used to go through panic attacks. I'd post my poems and then I'd take them down like 2 seconds later, feeling like so
yeah,
vulnerable. And then
sure.
I'd post it again in defiance of that feeling. And then I'd take it down again because I think, oh my God, I'm like way too vulnerable. Like I would have these
right.
crazy.
Yeah. Now
like,
imagine
crazy.
singing that poem so
Yeah,
that
I couldn't.
you're modulating
no
your
way.
emotions at the same time and giving away a whole bunch of
Right.
detail about what you're doing and feeling. It almost feels like you're giving them
Right.
again an access to your soul.
For sure.
It seems like it's
That's why
too
music
much.
touches people
Yeah.
so much. Like it's so powerful, and it reaches even across language. Like you don't even have to understand; you feel it.
Yeah.
You know, like you feel that emotion. That's a universal thing, right? Like
It's like
But-
those songs when I was tripping. It's like when I felt that emotional truth of it. That's when
For sure.
that kicked in.
for sure, yeah.
And that's why it's difficult for me to sing in public because I hear that in music
but that's
myself.
exactly
I
what
don't
you
wanna
want.
put it. I
But
know
this is
it is.
exactly-
You're right.
that's crazy.
And I'm working towards
It's
that.
crazy, Doc.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Working towards that. It's not because I'm.
I get it though.
Because it's so powerful
I get
to
it.
me.
I get it. I get it.
How can you do that? How could anyone reveal themselves
Yeah,
like that?
it's so hard. It is.
what?
This is the thing about an artist is that
Yeah.
they dare
Mm-hmm.
to be vulnerable. It's like a daring, and it's like, but all you have is you. That's all you've got. That's all we have.
Yeah.
You know, and it's so important that we share our gifts, like whatever it is, like our truth, our experience, because and as honestly and that's where the vulnerability comes in because it's so
Yes.
honest.
Yeah. But also, see, some people, I'm tuned to the sonic.
Right.
So
I am too,
yeah.
actually. I like
Right.
voices. I do. I'm
So,
tuned to it. I
yeah.
just don't have it myself.
No, but almost in terms of like when you're talking, it's like I'm learning and knowing the person through
Yes.
through their voice and their talking quite often more than visual or anything else. So as a result of that, that's why it's difficult for me to then reveal myself with it because I'm assuming everyone's getting all that detail, and so it's kind of frightening to put out that much
They're not.
detail. But and I realize that not everybody is. Someone's seeing the world more visually. Someone's seeing it more emotionally.
They're going to
It's hard to
take
get over
what
that.
they can get out of it,
Yeah.
right? At whatever they're at, right? And some people will reject it. Like we were
Yeah.
talking, like the parable of the sower, right? Like some people will take it, some people won't. Some people will get it. They'll see the whole picture. And if they do, then they're seeing right and they're going to love you, right?
Right.
If they're not, then they're not going to really get it anyway. And they'll get what they get out of it, right? They'll
Yeah.
get a portion of it, right? I mean, this is the whole thing about the parables, really, is like it speaks to us on so many different levels.
I love them.
And it
Yeah,
meets
they're
us
great.
where we are, right? Like it's, like I've had children's, like some of the work that I've done has been children's books and my own stories. And I say my own stories because they really felt like they came to me in horrible moments in my
Wow.
life. And I think that those stories are like they're. The way I describe them is they're for adults, but they're told so simply even a child can understand. Right?
Those are great. That's a good way to frame it. Yeah.
And I think that's what parables are. Like they're so like there's a simple element to it that states exactly what it like it's pretty clear, right? At the same time, it's just secretive enough in some ways that people who are on that path will see what it means and see the miracle of it sometimes because
Subtext.
it's you just your experience and like I really do feel like I've never felt like it's just been going from A to Z, like jumping from A to Z all at once. I really felt like it's been like as much as I jump, as much as I do take those leaps of faith, I do feel that each one is dependent on another one before that. Like there's been something before that prepared me, and then another one before that prepared me for that. And like I felt perfectly prepared all along the way, even though it was brutal each time getting to most of those stages, like going
What are
through
you
it.
preparing for next or ultimately? Are there answers to such things? Or is it,
For me, it's that. What am I preparing for? I'd like peace on earth. I'd like us to work together. I'm doing my part.
Yeah.
I want to hope, trying to encourage other people to share their genius and their
You're starting your own
I
podcast.
am starting my own podcast. So the idea of it's called Fields of Possibility. It's really in the early stages. I'd love people
great.
to submit. I'm just getting the website together now. Maybe by the time this goes up,
Yeah, we could have a
it'll be
link to it.
ready.
Yeah.
But the idea comes from Buckminster Fuller, really, in many ways. I mean, the fields of possibility, sort of, as we talked about, this connection and this idea that we are elements to come together, like this, just elements and things sort of jostling around, and
Right.
there's just magic can happen in this field of possibility. Like, where there's probability, there's magic, because anything is possible with quantum mechanics.
And that's everywhere. So yeah,
Magic is everywhere.
that's right.
So anything is possible. This is where miracles can happen, right? Like this is the space. So for me, I want the podcast to be about people sharing. Like, I've had ideas, I've had inventions. Like, I'm a creative person. I look at a problem and I think, why isn't this being fixed? Why can't we? What's stopping it? And most of the time, it's money and rote thinking. And Buckminster Fuller, well, he was an engineer, an inventor, architect himself. He felt that we really needed to bring much more creative thinking behind that, because the scientists will do what they've always done, and they will see things. Like, if you take 10 experts, like they did a thing, and they did a test or a study, and if you put 10 experts in a room versus 10 complete amateurs from a real diverse group, the amateurs, the diverse amateurs, will come up with more creative and better solutions than the 10 experts who will analyze and reanalyze what they already know.
Right.
And they won't look at it
That can happen.
differently and out of the box. And what I want to do with it is, a lot of the things that we think about is, this is what we do with what we have. And I wanted, what can we do with what is available? And I think that is a much bigger picture. And I think that all of us have these, like,
Because it includes
I have such a great
possibilities.
idea.
Yeah.
And what do I do with it? And most people, it's such hubris to think of a world-changing idea. It's hubris.
True.
Like, I'm just like this, and I have an idea to how to change all the energy for all the roads. Like, whatever.
Yeah, but you won't know unless you put it out there. What
And
it
people
is.
are afraid, like, do I need to, they're afraid about money because someone's going to steal the idea or they're going to quash the idea. I just feel we should be open source. We need to reject the forms that are constraining us. And I think we need to open source ideas. And I think we need to make it happen regardless of whether a government is going to help us or not, because our lives and this planet depends on it. And I want to see it happen.
The internet is the promise of that.
I agree, and
yeah.
the cost has come down and down and down, and like you were saying with podcasts, like this is basically Buckminster Fuller's theory is that doing more with less, like the amount of energy it takes for me to say something to the whole world potentially is nothing here.
It's
No
amazing.
cost, no
Yeah.
nothing.
Yeah.
20, 30, 40 years ago, the cost
Would have been a fantasy.
phenomenal.
It would have been a fantasy for
I'd
most
have
people
to mail
have their-
something to
yeah.
everybody and send it in ships across the ocean. The amount of energy per person, per pound is phenomenal. Now it's nothing.
Yeah, so that's why I say you might as well put it out there.
But this also speaks to the potential, our potential of what we can achieve with very little. And Buckminster Fuller, he called himself guinea pig B because he set himself up as an experiment of what one person can do to change the world. And I think we are all that one person. We are that. He talked about a comprehensive designer, and I think we collectively are that comprehensive designer, and we each have a piece of the puzzle that we bring together, and we make stuff happen. We make it happen. We keep on looking for a leader, for somebody to do it for us. And we take no personal responsibility for our participation in this. And we are part of it. We are denying ourselves our
It seems like
potential.
we used to be better at that collaborative way of being, and then there was
As
kind
we
of a
depended on it,
historical
yeah.
movements where we've been riding through for the last, I don't know how many centuries,
Industrial
where it was
Revolution
the
and-
individualized, everything is seen in parts rather than in wholes, and that's something that's been taken to an extreme. It sounds like people are starting to now wake up
A
back
new
again
renaissance.
to
I hope
that,
so.
that way of bouncing back to that other part of the pendulum where we're starting to realize the importance of the other, and
I hope so. I really do. I
in
think that
getting
it's
things done,
definitely
even practically
in
speaking.
pockets.
Yeah.
I
Like
think
open
that-
source that you mentioned.
Yeah.
It's better practically
For sure.
than other
For
ways
sure.
of doing it. Yeah.
For sure. I think I think that there are pockets of it. I think it's, this whole polarization of what's going on. I think that's that tension that creates. I mean, tension does create something happening. There's no
Yes.
question. I don't think it's always necessary. Like I think the idea of it being necessary is not true. But I think that we clearly need to. It's necessary for us in this time.
I'm gonna say yeah. Let me ask you a question. It might not be necessary, but this is the fear I have: is that if I avoid it too much.
No, you shouldn't avoid it. This is you have to deal with what's in front of you.
All right.
Like
But I thought when you're saying it's not necessary, that it's something that
I don't
we
think it's
shouldn't.
necessary for like as an abstract. Like, do we have to have negative things for the world to exist? Like in this philosophical, people will say things like that. You have to have this negative for the positive, and I don't agree with that. But clearly, we have these things to work out, and we have to deal with what's in front of us. Like we cannot absolve ourselves of our connection and our responsibility to each other, right? Like we're part of it.
Is it? We don't necessarily need to have bad things or evil in order to have good. Is what it seems like you're
100%.
saying. But it almost seems like if we get something, let's call it better and better, or less and less objectionable, it seems like we just see a finer grain detail in which we're then judging that to be the next step necessary. It almost seems like no matter where we get, we're going to say
that's a paradigm.
It's not enough, and there's going to be like a more fine-tuned judgment of it. It's not ever going to go away, is what I'm thinking.
I don't know. Like I think the
Structurally,
potential is like establishing a true connection with one another. I think the potential is there that we don't have that there's just such a telepathic one connection with one another that hurting you would be like hurting me, and it would be real. I think that's within us, our potential. So I don't
like
think
a
that's
singularity
impossible.
point. Yeah, once you reached this certain point, then maybe we don't need it any longer.
We're not there yet.
We're not there yet.
We're not there yet.
I could,
so this is why we have to deal with what's in front of us, right? We can't like that. That's why I say that glimpse of that oneness is like base camp, but there's work to do in the meantime, and we'll get there.
Yeah,
we'll get there. But
you're optimistic we'll get there?
I think
or we
that
can
this
get there,
is
but we're going to get there.
Force of the universe.
That's kind of the natural progression that it's towards, and it's going to get there one way or another.
Going to happen. And I kind of think that the spiritual energies of the universe are conspiring for our... I mean, if you think about, like we've only been broadcasting our existence to the universe for a very short period of time. But that connection, that sense of, I mean, even if it was connected somehow just on a spiritual level, not on a like a functional radio rave, thing. But they're all waves. Like these are
Maybe
all
we're
energy
projecting
waves.
all along.
For sure. And I just think that there's this universal energy that wants for us to succeed here. But I think the universe is mixed, just like we're mixed. We're a mixed bag here, and not everything is perfectly formed and perfectly shaped, and there's flaws, right? And we need to sort of polish and buff and do our work on polishing those flaws.
I think I agree. I think the world is slanted towards good. I think it favors
I think it's an
that.
impetus. I think it's the force. And
I think there's a slight imbalance towards good.
Right, and that's
all it takes.
That impetus towards death and the annihilation of the self. Which is kind of a self-destructive force, confuses us.
Right. Because it takes away the immediate.
It's perverted. It's become perverted, and it becomes a different thing from what it is. You know what I mean? It's an energy force, but it's twisted, and it's not understood. And so... And it stems from an other than self. So you have this other than self, and you have an enemy, and you have somebody that and you think you know better than them, and I see the whole picture and you don't, and you've got it wrong, and all of the problems come from ego. right? Like it's all ego.
What do we do with the ego? Where do I put it?
So the ego is how you relate to the world, who you want to be, how you form yourself, the things that you attach to yourself. That's who you are. Your experiences. This is your unique.
But my question is it that I'm trying to reduce the role of the ego or to eliminate it?
So I think it's a combination of both. I mean, at some point you eliminate it.
So you're going towards that goal, essentially.
But it is a momentary thing, and then you regain the ego. Like if I didn't have an ego, if I didn't have like a sense of self, I wouldn't be able to function in this world.
Right.
And those are those ecstatic moments that you talk about. It's like having no ego at that moment, right? So you can't function like that. You say you can hang on to it forever, but there's no talking to people like that at that moment. You can't function in the world or do anything.
So it's a fleeting experience, and necessarily so.
Correct. Correct. It's like tapping into that moment, but you can't stay there.
No, it would be exhausting.
And pointless, fruitless.
Right.
It'd be like sitting in a
There'd be no
meditation, it'd be
change.
nothing. You'd be just, it's like masturbation maybe a little bit, like it's just it's self-indulgent.
Metaphysical masturbation.
It's then back to the ego.
Yeah.
Right? Like, so it's kind of, you do it and you're done with it and you move on.
Learn from it.
And exactly. And it informs everything after that. I mean, you are changed, but you are not changed. You are the same and you were different. You just have a deeper understanding and you can move from that new place. And it just informs you a little differently. And you certainly perceive things much more intensely. So it reinforces that.
Right. Are you plugged into popular culture?
I would say more or less. Like I don't have a TV, but I'm to be honest, I listen to like podcasts. So that's my pop culture right now, and my friends and things like that. And what's going on a little bit? Why? What were you thinking of?
No, I mean it's just I tune in quite often because it kind of gives me a sense of what's going on with most of the world around me. And also not so much, but just to see how the narratives are being shaped for people. And lately, if you were tuning into the politics of the world lately.
I had definitely politics, yes.
It's gotten very chaotic for a lot of people. It's like...
It is chaotic.
Yeah,
it's
and
100% chaotic.
And even like making sense of it seems chaotic. Like there's a lot of theories are being thrown out as to how things would or should or could work out in terms of large groups of, beliefs being transformed and moved into behavior and actions and votes. A lot of outlying events are happening, and people are seem to be reacting in fear of the complexity of all the possibilities are too much. And a lot of the possibilities that they see are darker rather than lighter.
Right.
I'm feeling a lot of it around where there's a lot of people talking about collapse and apocalypse and even
I
our
gotta
popular...
be honest, I do see the signs, like as written, I do see the signs. So it's hard for me to talk about that a little bit because I do see that. I think biblically, and the book speaks to me, you know?
Right.
So I do see those signs. That said, I don't think it needs to be inevitable.
Right.
I think that the Bible is a living book. I think it changes. I think that it's up to us if we want it to be different. At this point, it doesn't look like it's going that way. But I mean, it's definitely it's dark and it's depressing and it's scary. And but that said, I do think that we have there's opportunities for hope. I do. I think that there's just so few people willing to step up. And everybody wants somebody to follow. And this is why we're ending up with somebody who is somebody to follow, but like to where? Wow, like talk about turning to destructive forces, like both the environment and just interpersonal relationships and community. And like, it's just amazing what they think is Christian, even like that they even attach that to it. It's just like exact opposite.
Always kind of thrown me for a loop. How the Christians have connected themselves to some of these
heinous.
Abhorrent.
Well, this is it. It's
What's going on?
not Christianity. It
No,
isn't. It's,
yeah.
to be honest,
Or the
it's
central
much
message
more like
is totally
Judaism.
missed.
It's much more
Yeah.
like Old Testament.
Old Testament. Right.
It's the Old Testament covenant that it feels like they haven't bought in and believed in the new covenant, which is about love.
Right.
And it's not about an eye for an eye and vengeance, and it's not about a chosen people.
Right.
You know,
But I'm curious
about,
as to why they're attracted to that as opposed to the other. Like why they're
'cause it makes
attracted
them
to
feel
that
better.
more
It's ego.
vengeful.
Ego.
Yeah.
It's always ego. It's always ego. I mean, that's going to be the number one thing that stops people from love, right? Like, it's what about me? And I want to be better. And I mean, that's part of the cycle of abuse, right? So, you know, everybody wants a dog that's lower than them to kick, right? And people, instead of picking on their oppressor, they pick on the person lower down, right? So I think that there's a lot of that going on right now. They don't have the courage to deal with the force that's above them,
Right.
because it's overwhelming. It's too much. It's too big. It
It's
feels
not-
too big.
That's more uncommon than not.
So
to be
they
able to
go
do
with
that.
what they can deal with. They take out their rage on someone weaker than them. And, you know, that's definitely not the Christian way.
No. It's a disconnect there.
So there's, it's like they read but they don't read. They see but don't see, you know? So where are we at? Are we running out of time? We've been talking.
We've been going for a while. Normally, we tend to take a break around the hour part,
Okay.
but we sail way past that, so it's fine.
I'm not
we
surprised.
don't need to. Yeah.
It's a pleasure, though. I got to say, I'm enjoying this. This is
me
not
too.
something that you get to talk about
Yeah.
with many people, because
true.
it's heady stuff. And it's a delight to be able to talk about it.
It was a delight. It seems like we really didn't cover anywhere near where we could
No,
have. So
I know.
maybe we need to have
I
another
know.
conversation someday.
I know, definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks for coming by and
Thank you
talking.
so much.
High five.
High five.
All right.
That's great.